Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I'm not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. We get together, we discuss a topic, we come up with thoughts, some ideas, sometimes some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. When we're recording this today, it is going to be the second final night of Westminster. That got me thinking about dog breeds. And yes, I know we've discussed dog breeds before, but I wanted to discuss dog breeds something different today. What I wanted to discuss was about the AKC in dog breeds. I was doing some research and I found out that within the last 30 years, out of 193 dog breeds that have been named by the AKC, 64 of those 193 have been done in the last 30 years. I found that interesting. I also found it interesting that one of the dog breeds that they named as one of the ones in the Westminster show is the Dogo Argentino, which is not a little friendly dog. And it got me thinking, well, so I'm not a dog trainer, and therefore I don't really know what that means, because does that mean that when people hear that the AKC has named that as one of their breeds, oh, let me go out and go get a Dogo Argentino or a Cane Corso or etc. So it got me thinking, is that a problem? Steve, you're kind of our breed expert. You want to start us out today?
Me?
Yeah, you.
About a breed expert, I mean, I know what I'm willing to walk into and what I prefer to stay away from.
Well, my question really is this, Steve, is the AKC naming all these breeds, is this causing a problem? Are there dogs out there that people have because they think, oh, the AKC said I can get this dog because it's approved. Does that mean it's a great dog? For me.
Well, I mean, the AKC at the end of the day is a registry, right? I mean, that's really what they do. They're just basically a registry. So, but because it's the big sort of organization that we have, the largest registry, people have to pay attention to that. So I would say they're not necessarily promoting the breeds by accepting them into the AKC for registration, but on some level, they're becoming exposed anyway. I mean, how would you know anything about a Dogo if you didn't, I mean, now it's in the AKC. So if you pay attention to the breeds that are in the American Kennel Club and you see them growing, whether or not you should take one of those in, sadly, I think it's because people look at it on TV. They see a dog that looks beautiful.
That's kind of my point, yeah.
They see a beautiful dog. Dogo's a stunning dog. I mean, real good looking, but I mean, if you ask somebody what they were bred for and I don't know, that becomes a bit of a problem. If they don't really know the nature of the dogs, then it could be a problem. But it could be, I mean, it could be a small breed. It can be, it's much about how is the breed going to behave based on history, more or less, because we already know that there's so much sort of diversity within a breed that we can say, well, these dogs were bred to behave this way, but within that breed, you'll surely find individuals that won't necessarily. So, I hate to say it again, but it's complicated.
Well, yeah, it is complicated. And is the AKC not doing enough to let people know about these breeds, that people see things on the TV, as you were saying, Steve? Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I mean, if you buy I've been through the discs. And back in the old days, I had the VHS AKC groups and breeds VHS tapes, and they now have switched to DVD. So when I had the VHS, interestingly, it actually did discuss the character of the dogs rather than just the conformation. I don't know that they were that accurate, but at least they talked about it. If you're gonna be a Weimaraner owner, you need to know that you need to start training early and all that. And So they had that. When I got and by the way, I think I paid $140 for the VHS set, right?
Okay.
Groups. When I wanted to buy the DVDs, because there were more breeds and upgraded and stuff, the DVDs were $500.
Okay.
Yeah, they were, they kind of kicked that up. So I was working at school, so they paid for it. I was like, yay. And then I started watching the DVDs. And all they did basically was line up. If they were talking about the Labrador, they'd line up 7 Labradors, and they would say why this one isn't built in this way well enough, and this one's overbuilt, and this one's wrong this way, and this is the perfect. And it was all about confirmation and nothing about the character of the dogs. And I was disappointed because I was teaching animal behavior. What do I care what it looks like? I care about how it behaves. So I was disappointed. It was an expensive lesson to learn, and I feel like they leave it out. I don't know why they would, but they did. And so most people aren't spending the $500. And if you listen to the guy who's like hosting the Westminster, I mean, he's going to give you a very sort of a light detail of the breed that he's discussing real quick in 2 seconds. He's going to say this breed comes from and it was named because da 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 da, and like that. But you're still not getting. They're not talking to you about how these dogs might behave in your home.
Right.
So I think if personally, I would say they're a little bit remiss in their responsibility.
Jeff, is that a problem? Is that causing problems with training? Is that causing problems with dog trainers and dogs that people are seeing these dogs on TV going and they say it's such and such and it should be this and that and the other thing, but not saying, yeah, well, this is not exactly, fluffy.
No, people are still going to be stupid. It doesn't matter what the AKC does. They're still going to not do research. They're still going to get dogs on impulse. They're still going to not consider the time, energy, and all the things that go into owning any dog.
Okay.
You obviously highlight the Dogo. I think the Dogo is a great dog for anyone who is going to be going wild boar hunting.
Yes.
So if you live on 3rd Street in, USA, suburbia, you probably don't want a Dogo.
Yeah.
But what do I know?
Yeah.
And Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I read, because I knew about this topic. I usually don't, but I was privy to it because Joel mentioned something to me about it. And I looked up Dogo, and they said something really positive. One thing I read: cheerful, loyal, happy-go-lucky, easygoing. And I'm like, what? It does. And then some other listing said, guarding the owner, and not for the be wary, not for the average dog owner. So I just wanted to interject that.
They're all that. They're all of that. But all right, I'm going to put my rescue hat on, right?
So wait a minute. When you say they're all that, do you mean Dogos?
Everything she just said, that's what they are. But they're not carnival dogs, right? They're not street fair dogs, right? And this is a generalization, right? But that's general for a lot of working dogs that are put in poor situations. Not necessarily Dogos, you know what I mean? But yeah, they're very loyal and they're trustworthy with their family and the people they know. And I've met a lot of Dogos over the years, really friendly dogs. And then I've met others that were labeled with behavioral problems, but they were just kind of acting like a protector, which we've talked about that a gazillion times. But
yeah,
you could say a Rottweiler or a German Shepherd is also a loyal dog, right? When I hear loyal, I think that dog loves their family. Nobody's getting in that house. That's what I hear when I hear loyal, and that's not a bad thing. It's but again, it goes back to breed selection and people doing their due diligence when they're looking to get a dog. And I mean the AKC. I really have no opinion. I never knew much about the dog show world, but what I did know is and by the way, for people watching, if you're young, VHS was this plastic contraption, and it had little tiny ribbon in it. And a long time ago, we would slide it into this gigantic machine, and it would put images on our TV. Anyway,
you drove Helen off. What? what that was about. Okay.
Oh man.
Anyway, but a long time ago, like especially earlier in my career, you know, when we would go to the library and like research.
And the library was a building that had, yeah, okay,
And
anyway.
you know what you had? You had a little tiny picture, and then you had a whole shitload of information. Now you have this gigantic picture and very little information.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you know, I think breed characteristics and description is very important, and I think it should be secondary to confirmation regardless of what breed anyone is looking to adopt or buy. So, but again, I'm not one to blame an organization on my personal decisions. It's not their fault.
Right.
Any decisions I make for my life, you know, I mean, look at the FDA. I don't listen to half the shit that they say because I'm afraid to. You know. But anyway, that's all I got.
But Helen, aren't a lot of people getting their information on these dogs from Westminster and from what the AKC has on their website and et cetera?
I don't know that they are. I
Okay.
think that the people who watch Westminster and these dog shows, they're dog enthusiasts and like real enthusiasts. So I think they are more apt to look into things and know more up front. I think the average person getting a dog, it's pure impulse, it's emotional, and they are more likely to buy something they saw in a movie or a television show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Disney came out with 101 Dalmatians.
Sure.
Everyone got a Dalmatian.
Yes.
It was that movie As Good as It Gets, and everybody wanted that Brussels Griffon Vendée or whatever the heck it was. Turner and Hooch. One of those movies with the cop, and then everyone had a French Mastiff.
Yeah.
So I think people are more influenced by ordinary TV and movies rather than Westminster and AKC. But that said, I think the AKC could do more to more accurately describe traits and characteristics. Like Jeff said, they say loyal. You know, it's like reading into you know, house for sale. You know, oh, fixer upper. You know?
Yeah.
You know,
Quaint.
quaint. Yeah, quaint. It's, you know, it's a piece of garbage. Needs love and care.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't want that house.
Yeah.
So they say things like loyal, lively,
energetic,
bright and lively. So I think they could do more because there are definitely some people who tune in to watch, and maybe a dog catches their eye, and then they hear, you know, the talk over, and you know, there's all those nice adjectives. But it's really not, you really have to read between the lines, and I don't think that people do. They don't know. Why would they?
Sure. So why don't you think that the AKC does that, Bonnie? Why don't you think the AKC gives you the truth or gives you the whole story?
Well, I don't know all the ins and I loved going to Westminster when I've gone, and I enjoy it and love looking at the breeds there, and I've been a couple of times, and I loved watching it as a kid and seeing the dogs, but it's changed over the years, and it seems to me to be more about money now and maybe bringing in more breeds. They have more registries, more shows.
Sure.
More dues or whatever, however they make their money. And I know in New York City now, they are opening dog training centers, doggy daycare, a couple of really big facilities. I know they have.
You mean the AKC? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
the AKC, yes. And they're they have a dog museum in New York. And it's you were looking, I'm pretty sure that's the case, that it is the American Kennel Club dog museum, but
Not sure.
but they also have pushed the Canine Good Citizen, which is a wonderful program, and there's Dr. Mary Birch, I believe, is in charge of the behavior and training part of the American Kennel Club. So they have a lot of good things, but if they're introducing so many new dogs and going into more, it seems, commercial aspects of the dog world, then, you know, I think it, like a whole lot of things, boils down to making money and not describing that people should not get this dog if they're living in New York, or it's not a good family dog with children, or you expect this should be really, and then the breeders that they list. Do they really know that I used to go on to look for a Norwegian Elkhound? Who does the American Kennel Club say are the good Elkhound breeders? And do you know anymore that's where you're going to find out the really good information about a breed? How do they vet the breeders that list with them? Which I'm not sure what they do.
They do.
I'm sorry, Steve?
There's none of that. I mean,
they probably don't have the resources to do that, I'm guessing, or they don't.
you could go on their site and they will have a breeder page, you know, where you can seek out breeders, but that's paid advertising, and the AKC doesn't endorse any of them. But
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
that idea that, you know, you'd have to have some, you know, kind of some steel ones in order, if you're going to like advertise there and not be up and up, because with the AKC could just revoke your ability to register your puppies if you start fooling around. You know, they do have that kind of power. So, you know, but they don't, you're right. You go there and you hope that they're going to sort of send you in the right direction. But I think that I always tell my clients, if they call up and they ask that, I tell them to get the name of the president of the club wherever they are and reach out to them and try and get a referral from the president of the breed club. If that's what you're looking for, that's the best advice I think I can give. But
Exactly.
Joyce?
I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate with the AKC and what I've noticed and what the changes seem to be to me over the years.
Joyce, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I showed dogs for many years in the AKC. I was 10, 12 years with English Bulldogs and French Bulldogs.
That's right, I forgot that.
It really is the parent club that's responsible for those descriptions. It's not the AKC itself. It's each breed's parent club makes up that description and decides what is the standard for the dog. You know, of course, the AKC has approval of it and everything, but we went through many changes in English Bulldog standard while I was showing, just in the description, because everything under a Bulldog is about 40 pounds. So females were 60, 65 pounds, about 50 pounds. So I was showing a 70-pound male, you know, so, you know, the descriptions are meant as guidelines at best. You know, of course, they want people to understand the dogs, but I think the breed clubs understand that you can't put every dog into that description. So it's kind of an overall, this is what we breed the dogs for. This is what they were bred for. This is what we were trying to get out of them. The problem is that there is so much breeding, and the AKC doesn't really care if you breed or not, as long as you pay your registration and, you know, register those puppies, and then the people who buy them pay for this, you know, a registration. They're happy. They're getting their money.
Yeah, and therefore then when they have more breeds, they get more money.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm not talking bad about the AKC because, you know, they do a lot of good things, most notably awareness that there are all these breeds.
Sure.
You know, they pull all these parent clubs together, but they don't do a lot of enforcing. We had a lot of situations where bulldogs were mistreated and we'd report them, and, you know, whole entire operations were not doing right by the dogs and we'd report them, and there just wasn't a lot done. And I think they put a lot of that on the breed clubs to enforce themselves. You know, they are just there kind of as a holder of all the information, and they create the programs, and, you know, it's a place to have all this stuff.
Okay.
But the parent clubs and then the local clubs are really what's responsible for keeping everything going for those specific breeds. So I don't have anything against AKC. Like I said, I'm not trying to bash them or anything, but I think we need to be realistic about what they're there for. And for people, I think they do highlight the dogs that are available and that are out there. And I find it kind of neat because I mean, I've seen breeds that I would only see at international dog shows all of a sudden be pulled into the AKC. And I was fascinated. You know, there's these, they're these little small fluffy dogs, and they're called beakers or something. And it's a breed, but it's an offshoot of another breed. And then there's that Mexican hairless, the Zololito.
Right.
Dog. I found those two dogs fascinating when I went to an international dog show, and I know so much more about them now because AKC now has allowed them to become part of the AKC. So, you know, I don't oppose new breeds coming in, but I think everything has to come down to the individual looking for the dog. The AKC is doing what they're there to do. They're there to be an umbrella for all the parent clubs of these different breeds and to provide the information that the breed, you know, the parent clubs put out there. You know, I think if we need more information, we've got to go to the breeders of these dogs and make sure they're giving accurate descriptions, and they're, you know, that's what the parent clubs are for. So,
but does the layperson know that? Does the layperson know that? Does somebody who's not a dog person know that the AKC isn't the be-all, end-all when it comes to breeds? Because I can tell you, for somebody who, you know, never had anything to do with dog training for a long time, I thought it.
Well, yeah, the AKC is the gatherer of the information. So they, you know, they have the website, they have the central, but the, you know, the breed clubs are the ones responsible for the descriptions. I always thought the AKC could do more. I just always thought they could enforce more, you know, take, you know, put a little bit more
active role.
Yeah, just to be more active. But we, you know, it was common knowledge while we were showing that pretty much all the AKC, even though they do have a big umbrella and they have a lot of things going on, it boils down to registrations. And, you know, so they, you know, they said they're the umbrella. I don't know any other way to put it, but, and they provide that valuable service. You know, it needs to be there or there'd be chaos among everything.
Okay.
So, you know, but it's, I know that the breeders, at least in bulldogs and Frenchies, the two I was involved in, took their descriptions seriously. They, you know, if they would be at, you know, these AKC events. I don't know if you've ever been to a small AKC show, not Westminster, but one of the local shows. They're all over the country, in towns and cities all over the place.
Sure.
And they can be anywhere from, you know, 50 dogs to thousands of dogs, depending on where you are. And I know our clubs tried to always have booths there to give information out to people. So the people who are coming to the show, and that's what Westminster's about, is people come to the show, they get to meet the breeds, they get to talk to the breeders, they get to find out really good information about these dogs. And I think that's more valuable than any AKC description, because you only have, like you said, a block of space to put it, and it's not going to cover everything, and it's going to be generic at best. Okay. So.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe part of it too is that Westminster's gotten very commercialized, or was it always? I don't know.
And the dogs you're seeing out there too, you have to remember, are the best of the best. You're not seeing a bad dog out there. And
unless it's the Samoyeds, but we won't talk about that.
These are the dogs that have won every show possible throughout the year. You know, they're considered the top, and so they're trained the best. They're you know, beautified. They're, you know, you know, they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
and,
no, I know.
You know, they're pampered and coiffed and all that stuff. So, you don't always see that at the local shows. You will see some pretty funky dogs. You go to a local and you're like, what is that? Is that a Weimaraner? No, that's a lab. What are you talking about? That's you know, and because, you know, anybody can show. And I have had people pull these dogs out of their backyards and say, oh, yeah, I just decided I was going to show my bulldog. And I was asked many times to show bulldogs, and I had to break these people's hearts and say, that's not a show quality bulldog. I'm not showing it. You know, I'm sorry. You know, the legs are 15 inches long. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. So, you know, so but you can show those dogs. There's absolutely, as long as they have a registration of AKC paperwork, they can be shown. So it's, you know, but when you get to that level, when you're going to talk to those breeders, those are the most knowledgeable and the ones that have probably the most experience and the nicest quality according to the standard dog.
Okay. David?
Not much more to add. I mean, I think everyone's pretty
Well,
much hit the
your
nail on the head on pretty much everything.
your breed
Um,
won the toy group.
oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Oh, did it?
yeah.
Havanese.
The Havanese. Yeah, yeah. I heard that. I think they
I
did
don't
pretty well last
I
year
don't
too, if
know
I'm
if
not
that's
mistaken.
good for
Yeah,
the
yeah,
breed.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
What
But
do you mean by that, Bonnie? Sorry, Dave.
no, that's okay. Go ahead.
What do you mean by that? You don't know if that's good?
Just that more people will want them, that they'll be inbred, that people are going to say, oh, I want to have an ease, and somebody who, you know, isn't a reputable breeder will start selling them, and just
I don't know. I think that's already happened. This is one case where I will say, when the AKC introduced Havanese as the new breed,
Which was fairly
everybody
recent.
got a Havanese.
what did
I
you say?
had
What's that?
so many Havanese,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting, you know, I mean, and a lot of them, well, even like my Havanese, you take one look at it and say, that's not a Havanese. It's just, you know, not great breeding. I mean, I met the parents.
Mm-hmm.
As a puppy, she looked great, but she grew up to look like a Maltese poodle mix.
Okay.
I've had a lot of that, especially in my neighborhood and other people. You know, I've trained their dogs, and getting to, you know, characteristics and things like that. You got to go, you know, back to history and stuff like that. So it's the environment. There's so many different variables and factors. I work with so many that have different personalities. Some personalities are closer to a totally different breed altogether.
Yeah, yeah,
And
exactly.
you know, and I think that's where the problem lies too. Is I think there's something like 600 just regular breeds. Forget about the, you know,
Yes. Something to that effect.
yeah, something like 600. Then you have the mixed breeds, and then you're working with dogs I never even heard of before.
Right.
Like what Joyce, we were saying, Joyce, and you never heard of these things before. So then it's a question of, okay, you got two different breeds. Maybe it's a German Shepherd and a Golden Retriever. All right, you know what the characteristics are of those, but okay, what characters did it have more of? You know, and then you got that. Then you got where those dogs came from. There's so many variables that, like what you're saying, you see it on Animal Planet 101, you know, Dogs 101. They tell you all the different descriptions, similar to the AKC or whatever you might see online, and that's all it is, just general characteristics. But there's so many different variables to that, and I think because of that, and because so many different breeds, no one has the time to research and say, okay, I'm interested in 5 different dogs or something, which sounds reasonable. But then to go through all those 5 dogs and get real in depth on each of those to see if it's worth your time, you know, getting that dog, whatever that one might be. No one has the time. So getting what Helen was saying, it's just that impulse or cuteness or whatever.
You know, I was thinking about, I'm friends with somebody on Facebook who has the Swedish Valhunds, and they're little and they're cute. And if, you know, I love elkhounds, so I'm thinking, oh, that might be a good next dog for us. But then I see what the Valhund people post about them. And it's like, oh my God, you know, maybe if, you know, that's what my focus was going to be all day and every day, and train, you know, 30 years younger, and, you know, oh my God, that little dog is something else. And I'm like, I don't think so. I love to, and they look cute. And like you were saying, Joyce, if they're showing at Westminster, they're going to be behaved and trained and look great. And so,
yeah.
Well, you know what it goes into showing one of those dogs. I mean, there's powder and there's plucking and there's painting and there's trimming and then coiffing. And, you know, I mean, I got so sick of it. I would just take my bulldog into the ring totally untouched, and you know, they'd have a stain on their elbow or something, and you know, I was just like, this is ridiculous. My poor dog gets all her whiskers shaved off and her whole face powdered, and for what? You know, for a beauty contest.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think the AKC could do better, and they have to, they could be huge in this, is that when these dogs win at Westminster or any big dog show, and somebody says, geez, I want that, I want something from that line. These breeders they're also very interested in the money. You know, a lot of, they still have their standards, you know, some of them, but they will sell semen or puppies to pretty much anybody that has the money.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's everybody across the board. I have met some very picky breeders, but in too many cases, even some of the people that I just totally idolized and wanted a dog out of their line, I asked them, why are you not being more picky about who gets your dog or who you breed to? And they're basically, that's not my responsibility. I said, but it is. When I bred once and I had 9 puppies.
Yep.
Who has 9 puppies in bulldog? That wasn't supposed to happen. And it took me 4 months to find homes for all my dogs because I was so picky and they had to go with the space.
Oh, we lost you.
Joyce,
Oh,
we
I think you hit
lost
the
your
mute button
audio.
or something.
I got it.
I felt that was my
Joyce,
responsibility.
you got muted for a minute somehow, so we missed
Yeah.
the part of that. Sorry.
When your 9 puppies you were talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, with my 9 puppies, they went without registrations. They went to homes that spay neuter contracts. And I, to this day, know where every single one of my puppies is. And I stay with these people. They can't do it because they're selling semen at, you know, thousands of dollars a pop. And how many dogs, I'm going to refrain from saying bitches, but how many of them are getting pregnant off of this semen and inferior dogs, you know, inferior bitches. You have to, they're taking a dog out of anywhere and saying, I'm breeding this beautiful Westminster winner semen to this dog I got from a friend or, you know,
oh, wow.
no regulation on it whatsoever. And so of course we're getting personality differences. There's no reason, there's no controls on who's breeding to who. And so we're getting some really, I mean, it's ridiculous. We're getting horrible dogs. And, you know, a lot of the AKC could do a lot better job in changing their registration and what their requirements are, as well as breed limitations and restrictions, who can breed and all that other stuff. So I've always been that open breeding policy they have.
Well, and I think that really has been the point about this discussion is I don't think we're here to bash the AKC. I think what we're trying to say is, as you said, there needs to be more responsibility. There needs to be more upfront action from the AKC, and a little bit more thought maybe behind certain things that are done. You know, I think that we could continue this discussion for a long time. I think that we could come up with a lot of different thoughts, and I'm not sure whether there are any answers to come up with today, but I think that it was definitely an interesting discussion. I want to thank all of you for being here, and I want to thank all of you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot now. Bye-bye.